Now that is the type of leg that I dream about at night.
Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. Today I am here with David, my good friend from college, and he brought me these slabs of cherry and they are gorgeous. They're like what, 3 inches thick?
I think 3 inches.
Yeah,
Up to 3 inches.
They're beautiful. And you may remember this from when I made the leg vise on my old bench. The slab of cherry also came from David. So this is what you call a really good friend. But today I want to turn these into the new leg vises for my bench, and this should be the last step in making this bench. So it's been a fun journey and I'm really loving how this comes out. I think this will be a great capstone. So as you can see, the bench is all done and I am having a lot of fun. And I've had a lot of people asking me about the plans for the bench, as I have so many videos out on how to build it. If you'd like to see those, I'll leave them up in the cards. But I do now have plans available on my website, so if you want to see that, go take a look at that, woodbywright.com. I'll leave a link to it down below. Now with these two vises here, I want to talk about the difference between more of a traditional style and a very modern style. And I'm going to be doing two separate videos. So if you'd like to see the video on this modern one, I'll leave a link to that in the cards if it's out already. But today we're going to be talking about this traditional style. This is a wooden screw, a 2.5 inch wooden screw from Lake Erie. And the kit they provide has the screw, the nut, the retention ring, and the rod. And if you've never played with a wooden screw, they are a lot of fun. They are enjoyable and smooth and just, there's something very tactile, very hand tools about a wooden screw that are just an extreme amount of fun. So I want to go through today the build of this and take a look at what all we have involved in it.
Now in this project I'm starting with cherry. I love cherry. It is one of the easiest woods to work with hand tools and a beautiful end project. Not quite as beautiful as white oak, but I guess that's me personally. And I need to cut this slab to length for the first thing. This is a buck saw, and I like this for really rough cutting and basically bringing things to a rough length. It works fairly quickly and just goes great for running across the grain. But once I can cut them down, then I can start flattening them out. Now I'm going to be using a scrub plane to do most of this because I actually have to take off quite a bit of material. They are warped and twisted a decent amount. In some places I have to take off as much as a 1/2 inch. And a scrub plane makes a fairly quick work of that. So I can put it up against these bench dogs on the bench and then slowly work down and bring it to flat and true. I do have a bunch of videos on that, so if you want to see more information on actually flattening or dimensioning lumber, you can do that. Once I get it flat, then we can cut it to its shape. And for this shape, I'm basically just making a wedge so that it's about 4 or 5 inches wide at the bottom and then tapers out to full width near the top. And that means cutting. Now I made this saw bench a while ago and it makes ripping so much easier, and I really like doing it. If you'd like to see that, I do have a video on the saw bench and using it. But yeah, there are other ways you can do it even if you don't have that. I do like using a frame saw from time to time. This is fast and very enjoyable, but a little bit different. I think I usually prefer the saw bench a little bit more, but the frame saw is fun. So whichever you want. After that, I can chalk it up in the end vise and then plane it down, smooth out all those saw marks and get it ready for the future working. Now in this case, I do want to save this live edge. It kind of matches with the live edge of the rest of the bench, and I like the look of leaving a little bit of bark. Matt Cremona showed that in one of his videos a while ago, and I really like how it came out. So I'm going to do the same thing on here. A draw knife really makes quick work of this, and you get a really nice clean surface fairly quickly. Now I need to cut the hole for the screw, and this needs to be a little larger than 2.5, but unfortunately I don't have an auger bit that large. So in this case, I'm stuck with using a hole saw. Yes, you can use a hole saw on a brace. Is it fun? No. I would say this is more boring than a boring bit. But slowly but surely you can drill a hole all the way through the leg and leg chop. Once you get it all the way through, then you can do a little chamfering and clean it up. Just with a quick chisel running around the donut. Gives you a fairly nice edge and just brightens things up, makes them look a little bit better. Next up, we need to start working on the pin board at the bottom, also known as a parallel guide and a bunch of other names. But it's basically a board with a bunch of holes in the bottom so that you can keep the chop parallel to the leg. And I'm going to start with this piece of white oak. It's about 1 inch by 3.5 inches, I think it is. But I can cut some shoulders on the end of it. Don't really need to do that, but I like doing it. And then I'm going to put it on the leg at the bottom and trace out precisely where the mortise needs to be so that this can slide into the bottom of the leg. Once I have those marks, I can do most of the chisel work to make this mortise. And I don't know, I kind of like making mortises. They're just simple, easy work to do. And once you fit the tenon in, it's very pleasing when something actually comes together and fits nicely. Simple joinery, but very enjoyable. Now I can lay the whole bench down on its face. Yeah, that was fun. And I need to make the mortise for the pin board to slide through the leg. This will go just underneath the stretchers so that it misses the stretchers but is down near the bottom of the leg. And I'll lay out all those marks, and then just like I made the chop into the chop, I'm going to now chop into the leg. I'm making this hole larger than the pin board by about 1/8 inch on all sides, so it has about a 1/4 inch total dimension larger in width and length. After boring out the holes for it, I can come back in with a chisel and square out or rectangle out the holes. Is it rectangling or squaring? I'm turning round holes into a rectangle hole. And now I can put the vise back up. Bench, vise, whatever that thing is. It's heavy. Now let's continue on with this pin board now that I have a vise to work on. I'm going to be laying out a bunch of holes so that they're approximately a 1/4 inch apart in 4 rows. Those rows are a 1/2 inch apart top to bottom, and then the holes are a 1/4 inch apart, so each row is 1 inch in length of the pin board. I hope that makes sense. Basically, I'm making a bunch of diagonal holes just like you see here. Once I have bored out all the holes, yes, that is a lot of holes, I can come back through with a chamfer bit and clean them up. The chamfering just makes them look a little bit cleaner and truer. I was going to do a whole bunch of design on the end of this to make it look very fancy, but I decided actually just chopping an angle on there was more the look I'm going for. So I'm just cutting an angle and then cleaning up with a plane, and voila! Now let's do a few finishing touches on the chop itself. I'm going to be doing the chamfering, a very heavy chamfering on all the sides, and I just like the way it looks. It matches up with the pin board a little bit more. You may have seen that the bottom of this has a large chunk missing due to a branch or bark or how it was originally growing, and I'm going to be filling that with epoxy. So I'll be backing it with tape so that the epoxy doesn't pour out the bottom, and basically reshaping the bottom of this to kind of look like it's whole. I'm using West System epoxy, and I'm keeping it clear this time. In the past, I have used tints and dyes to add color to it, but this time I would actually want to, I'm kind of playing with the look of like a crystal, and I'm going to be pouring it very thick so that there are a lot of bubbles in the bottom that form from the extra heat when you pour it thick. You'll see that when I'm done. But I can pour it all in, wiggle the vise in, and make sure that the pin board is now glued into the mortise. I also want to make sure that the pin board is at 90 degrees to the chop so that it can keep it parallel. Now, one of the last steps I need to do is a large chamfer on the top, and I can do this before I put in the carving. And it's good to have a supervisor making faces at you. Speaking of carving, this is one of my favorite steps. It's one of the last things I usually do on a project, and I know a lot of people really don't like this pattern application method. I'm not sure why, but I really enjoy it. It's a very simple method. You can just glue it on with a glue stick, and then when you're done, use a card scraper to clean it off, and then you're already using a card scraper for your final finishing on the surface. Once that has been applied and dries for a moment, then you have a really nice pattern that you can work on. This is one of the simplest methods possible of carving. I'm just using a V-gouge to come in and follow the line and basically tracing a line. If you can follow a line with a pencil, then you can carve with one of these. I'll leave a link to this chisel down below so you can get one for yourself if it's something you want to do. Then I'm also going to come in with a gouge and basically make a texturing around the outside. This just makes the pattern stand out a little bit more. I'm just backing up about a 1/4 inch or so and then pushing into the line. Really simple design, but it makes a big difference, especially once the finish hits it. Now let's actually do some of the final assembly processes. I'm going to be using this paste wax to wax the screw. You can see I'm just loading it into the screw, and then I'll run it in and out a couple times to fill it up. The nut on the back is just basically screwed into place. There's 4 screws that hold it into place. It's a really simple job. I completely forgot to turn on the video, but I think you can imagine putting 4 screws through the block into the back of the leg. If not, I'm sorry. As you notice, I'm missing a retention ring, so we need to do some work on that. The retention ring that comes with this Lake Erie kit is this brass C you can see in the background, and each half of it uses 3 screws, so I'm going to pre-drill out the holes for the screw. And then I do want to put leather on the face of this. It just makes it a little bit tighter grip and a lot of fun. I'm using a DAP, I think it's 3M. I'll leave a link to it down below. And you put it on wet on both sides, let it dry a little bit, just like a contact adhesive, because it is a contact adhesive. And then you can apply it, and they go on really nicely. And because this is a vise, I can use it as the clamp to clamp this in place. Let it sit overnight, and now I'll have leather that will stay on there for a good long time to come. And yeah, first use of the actual vise. Now we can start doing the finish work, and this is where everything comes to life. Boiled linseed oil and paste wax are one of my all-time favorite finishes, how they soak in and they just bring out the color. I have a lot of videos on how to work with boiled linseed oil, even how to make it yourself. And this is the homemade stuff, so it doesn't have chemicals, so I can put it on with my hand. If I wanted to, I could drink it, but yeah, that's not very good in the bathroom. But it's just going on and brings out the color, and this cherry will just darken over time and become far more luscious. Now I can put on the retention ring and play with the vise. The retention ring goes on with 6 screws, and that is about it for the vise. Once that's in place, we can play with it and have some fun. And here you can see just how smooth this really is. It goes in and out almost effortlessly with just a finger, and looks fantastic. I am overjoyed with how this came out. Really, really like it, and I'm looking forward to using it for years to come.
There you have it. With a little bit of carving and a little bit of fun, this is an enjoyable vise that I will be using for years and years and years to come. And I am looking forward to the enjoyment from that. If you'd like to see the video on the more modern vise, you can see that as well. Also, if you'd like to see the plans for the bench, I have those up on my website now, and yeah, go take a look at those. So I want to say thank you to the patrons on Patreon. I know I say this a lot, but you guys really are the reason why this channel is here today. Without you, Wood by Wright would not be here. If you'd like to find out more about Patreon or see how you can help out, you can look right down here. Also, if you'd like to subscribe or see some behind the scenes footage, you can do that over here. And until next time, have a wonderful day.